Alright, guys. Today, what I want to discuss is breath hold training, which is pretty much training your lungs, your respiratory muscles. Now, while training your breath hold will undoubtedly increase your breath hold time, increasing breath hold time isn't really something that most people are interested in. However, it's this capacity to hold your breath that has cross application to other endeavors that may benefit you very well. So while a runner isn't necessarily going to be holding their breath while they're running, an increased tolerance to the buildup of carbon dioxide and a better capacity to take in and utilize oxygen will benefit them in their performance. For me, the excitement of breath hold training and training my respiration muscles really came to light when reading the book Breathe by James Nestor and listening to podcasts and information from The Oxygen Advantage. My teammates at the time and I had actually tried out a number of the different exercises and found how strong or weak our own respiration was. So in the desire to build up my ability to hold my breath, not only for health benefits, but mainly for performance increases in my exercise, I started to look into it a little bit more. I'll be looking at breath hold training in this video from two different aspects. Static breath holds, which we will call static apnea training, which is where you're not moving. You're staying completely still and we're just seeing how long we can hold our breath. Secondly, we'll be looking at dynamic apnea holds, which are breath holds where you are moving and building up a greater amount of carbon dioxide while holding your breath. Okay, and so first looking at static apnea holds, I want to show you two different tables right here. The one on the left is for handling buildup of carbon dioxide, and the one on the right is to improve your ability to hold in oxygen. Now, if we look at the research articles, we can see what each of these do. Training the body's tolerance to carbon dioxide will decrease the rest time between successive breath holds in an attempt to slowly build up more carbon dioxide. And this pretty much just means we're ramping up the amount of carbon dioxide in your system to grow tolerance to it. Whereas an O2 table pretty much just focuses on the opposite by increasing duration of individual breath holds. This chart right here might help make that table make a little more sense. We can see that your oxygen level decreases during a breath hold, whereas your carbon dioxide levels increase, and they both meet in the middle there. And so we're pretty much just trying to improve both of these vectors that play into holding your breath longer. Now, I am all for little tips and tricks that can increase your ability to train even more, and I found a really cool one here when looking at free divers, where they actually try and stimulate a nerve by using ice water on the face while holding the breath. It seems really ridiculous, but I actually tested it out, and it works pretty well. The idea is there's some facial nerves that you have, which when exposed to cold water, it drops your heart rate super significantly. And so by having a lower heart rate, I'm going to actually also decrease my respiratory rate. And so I won't feel the need to breathe in as much. And it's wild, but it actually kind of like supercharges the breath hold training. And if I'm going to take 5 minutes to do breath hold training every day, I might as well get the most bang out of my buck with it. And this is actually shown in another study right here too that we can look into and see some more interesting facts about. And so in this study, we can see that the magnitude of the heart rate reduction depends on how cold the water is. And we can see that in the chart right here, where the colder water temperature has greater reduction of heart rate over your resting heart rate baseline levels. This is really cool because by just making the water colder, you can hold your breath longer. In my mind, this is kind of like using a belt when deadlifting, where it's going to allow you to get a little more out of your exercise. Okay, and so now we're going to look into dynamic apnea training, which is that breath hold while moving around. And here I'm just using walking as an example. And there's actually a lot of cool research studies, which I'll kind of just pop up in the corner, that talk about the benefits of it. But when we talked before about the buildup of carbon dioxide while you're holding your breath, moving around, exercising is just going to expedite that process. So by moving while holding our breath, we're just building up additional carbon dioxide, which, when structured into a training program, has significant benefits on your breath hold itself. And once again, if we think back to that first chart, they really work together in tandem. I think using the pool and swimming is a perfect example of how to do dynamic apnea because you're already holding your breath while you're swimming through the water. Doing breath holds in your training actually also significantly reduces oxidative stress, which is why health professionals like Laird Hamilton and his XPT project have been using weights with underwater training for ages. And he always talked about how he never felt sore or stressed when he would try and surf the next day. And I always wondered why, and this research kind of shows that. Now, while we're already talking about breath holds and heart rate and respiratory rates, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about nutritional implications of it. And the first thing I want to talk about is a very common stimulant that we all know as caffeine. And caffeine's going to drive up your heart rate, increase that respiratory rate, and make breath holds harder. So you might find that if you're doing these dynamic apnea holds that I just talked about earlier, during a training session where you took a bunch of caffeine, it might be really tough. I find it easiest to do in the morning for myself, but if you're working it in with current training practices, you might need to just think about how you're eating. I personally really like doing these breath holds during my morning walk where I might hold my breath from one mailbox to the next. So I actually wait to have my morning coffee until after this morning walk just because of this information alone. Now, just as caffeine is going to elevate your heart rate and respiratory rate, there's actually other compounds that we can talk about that will do the exact opposite, and chamomile is one of these. Specifically, the active component in it, aptogenin, which is actually a benzo, if you're familiar with like Xanax, anti-anxiety medicines. Chamomile actually has a decent amount of this in it. Now, a cool reason of why chamomile tea works with breath hold training so well is because of this anti-anxiety component of it. When you're holding your breath for a long amount of time and that carbon dioxide level is really building up inside of your system, you're going to panic. And chamomile, with its anti-anxiety components, actually helps me, at least anecdotally, push that a little bit further. Additionally, taking supplements like nitrates that can be found in beetroot can actually really increase apnea holds, and there's entire studies on themselves researching the effect of beets on breath holds. Finally, I also really like to just mention that eating anything will increase blood flow to the gut for digestion, increase heart rate, and respiratory rate. So, doing breath holds fasted can actually be another way to increase your breath holds even further. In the effort of showing how you can include this breath hold training into pre-existent lifestyle patterns, I'd like to show you a way that I've found a way to really fit it into my own. Now, as I already mentioned, I do breath holds during my swimming workouts or on my walks while I'm moving around. That's my dynamic apnea training. But I'd like to share with you how I do my static apnea training. I have made a very big effort in the past couple of years to try and include very small amounts of daily meditation, and I typically do like 10 to 15 minutes a day. And I have found that by tacking on my breath hold training at the end, I've already calmed down my body so much, gotten my heart rate and respiratory rate so low that I can get a really effective breath hold training workout right after. There's not many better feelings than making an educated guess and then finding a bunch of supporting research for it, but that's exactly what I found here. Meditation reduces respiratory rate, heart rate, and blood pressure, all things that are going to influence how long you can hold your breath. And we can see that in these charts right here, where before meditation and during meditation, we have a huge drop in mean heart rate, which is your average heart rate with it. And we can see that this also affects the standard deviation too. So not only is the average heart rate lower, but there's less variation between the heart rate as well. This is just the full chart of effects from it. I figured I'd throw it up here, but the main thing that we're focusing on is what I just mentioned before, which I once again outlined in the red boxes. We have a decrease in average heart rate and the variation of that heart rate. So, to recap, we have static apnea holds, which are breath holds where you are not moving, you're relaxed and trying to hold. We have dynamic apnea holds, which are done while moving around, doing activities, exercising. We also have a bunch of nutritional influences which can impact your blood pressure, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, and either positively or negatively affect your ability to hold your breath. And then finally, we have other lifestyle intervention ways like meditation, which can lower your heart rate, lower your respiratory rate, and improve your breath hold times as well. In application, I sometimes do my dynamic breath holds while I'm on my morning walk or during a lift exercise in between sets. I try and do my static breath holds after I finish something like a daily meditation if I manage to get it done that day. And I've had some really cool anecdotal benefits from this as well. I use a Whoop band, and over the past couple of months, I was able to take myself from averaging over 15 breaths per minute during the night to under 13. So it's really cool when you implement something small like this that's only going to take a few minutes, fit into my already pre-existent training, and I actually get to see my health improve directly because of it. Because of this, I would make the argument that, hey, breath hold training can likely improve your sports performance, but also if you're just worried about personal health, improve your respiration function. It's only going to benefit you in the long run. Thank you for taking the time to check out my video on this. I really hope that you find, whether for performance or for your own health, that this might benefit you, and I encourage you to try it out. Be safe. Don't push it. Don't pass out. Be with friends. Thanks guys for watching the video, and I'll see you back again next Friday for another one.